Although automobiles have been around since the late 19th century, it wasn't until the 1920s that cars started to become mass-produced and increasingly integrated in daily life in America. In the late 1920s, the auto industry was booming. According to some reports, about 10% of the population's annual income was used on auto-related items, whether it was purchasing a new car, gas, or repairs. The auto world was shifting into high gear. In the late 1920s, the car market was comprised of numerous independent companies, such as Stutz, Pierce Arrow, and Durant. At the top of the auto world were the Big Three: Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. The Big Three accounted for about 3/4 of the market, while the other smaller independent companies made up the balance. Before the stock market collapsed in October of 1929, the automobile industry had just set a record selling more than 5 million vehicles. By some statistics, every 1 in 5 Americans owned an automobile. Once the stock market crashed, car sales followed in suit. The auto market plummeted by nearly 50% in a single year. By 1932, the number of vehicles sold was less than 1.4 million. This decrease in car sales caused extremely high unemployment rates in the auto cities of the United States. Before the industry started to make a comeback in 1932, half of the male population in Detroit was unemployed. Although everyone suffered from the Great Depression, the smaller independent companies suffered the biggest losses. By 1933, the Big Three now sold more than 90% of the cars on the road, and independent companies, which normally focus on luxury cars, were unable to compete. By the end of the 1930s, nearly all these independent automakers were gone. This meant that the workers from these companies had to find a way to get integrated with more successful companies or find a new line of work completely. While a decrease in competition was beneficial for the Big Three, this alone didn't result in smooth sailing for the major auto companies. Around the same time of the Great Depression was a new era of workers' rights. While unions had been created in the past, the major corporations had numerous methods of disassembling them. This all changed with the National Labor Relations Act, NLRA, which was passed by the Roosevelt administration in 1935. This act prohibited companies from breaking up unions. From this bill, 2 important and influential unions were formed to ensure job security and workers' rights: the Committee for Industrialized Organizations, CIO, and the United Automobile Workers, UAW. Not surprisingly, auto titans such as Henry Ford viewed unions as an obstruction, and Ford even wrote, "We shall not bother about good feeling in industry or life. We shall not bother about masses and classes, and such matters as have nothing at all to do with real business of living." In other words, Ford felt as if the label of classes and organized unions impeded industrial progress. Nonetheless, unions remain a bold part of the American construct to this day. Despite the Depression, on the positive side, the 30s was a period of major innovation and design change. During the start of the 1930s, cars were starting to use low-pressure balloon tires, which took the place of hard-rising, high-rise tires. This was important because it increased the life expectancy of the tire to more than 2 years. It also allowed for cars to get better gas mileage. It was also in the 1930s that engineers were able to further study wind resistance and safety. This is why most cars in the 1930s started to take a smoother shape. 2 of the most important safety features that are now required in cars were also generated in the 1930s: safety glass and windshield wipers. Along with these economical inventions and safety features, the 1930s was also when the automobile really started to become an eye-catching, moving piece of art. Along with sleeker-looking exteriors, it became the norm for cars to be equipped with radios and heaters. During a time of tremendous stress, the industry consolidated, workers got more rights, and the product was greatly enhanced to become a mainstay of the American dream.